Beastly Comedy, Canto 1.9. The sugar on my finger soft she tasted, and my lips, our cabin in the Ferris wheel descending into rest, the port awash with scarlet light, and 20 anchored ships reclining where the waters moaned, the barren stone caressed. Forgive me for pelagic thoughts when coastal fish were fried. I tried to stay in harbours where my passions are suppressed, but oceans churning in the guts, the verses I denied, were stronger than domestic air, my patience for our bliss, the screamed confessions, gentle fights, in shadows full of pride. I practiced talking of desire by noting down the kiss, affection in our phrases lost, so precious and mundane. It trifling seemed compared to caves exploring this abyss. The music died. What has been saved of manners more urbane? I blinked and saw the sleeping guide, the past again a dream, the present stranger almost dead, the seeker gone insane. Forget the fair, my mind and tongue, the coffee and the cream. My fortune is a loyal friend, not seafood I could eat, no hands to hold, the crowd to smell where cities brightly gleam. He rose up from the bed of clay, eternal night to greet, and said, I hear the rumbling beast is longing to be fed, your stomach making noises like a cartwheel on the street. But we must travel farther, where the fungi wider spread, and past the freshly branded flesh, delivered from the grave, the bellows whistling at the fire, and pokers glowing red. There never was a man content who once was not a slave, no woman who was free enough to loose a fetter's shoes. For human spirits are enchained by nourishments we crave, by shelter and security, the money we could lose, desire that fades away with looks, the land we claim to own, but which can be as whimsical as blessings of a muse. The winters are severe enough without resentment sown, the seeds of scorn producing grain when frozen is the soil, and thralls who seem obedient yet have indignant grown, collapse and perish by disdain or by unceasing toil. We enter now the center of the system where despair assumes the shape of demons who repenting slavers broil, since brutal were the passions that the shepherds used to share. The suffocating cargo was transported in a ship, survivors on plantations sent, sustained on bread and prayer. Resisting workers tied to poles, the servants faced the whip, while masters talked of liberty and madams turned away, as girls with barely nascent dreams in turn were forced to strip. Be not afraid of hollow horns or how the darklings bray, for only they who have oppressed, attacked or slain their peers, are threatened by the flaming forge by which the demons stay. Despite my guide's assurances, calescent were my ears, because there might not be a saint protected from abuse. I have not been a despot who ignores abundant tears, but goodness of my actions I could not from aims deduce, if weakness is offensive found, and vices are assessed, according to effects my deeds in innocence produce. What do humane intentions mean, the anger I expressed, for causes always seeming just, and values shining bright? If fuming I become the beast, the sages would detest. If demons only gild men, and women wailing smite, then who has not deserved to be immured in these domains, who stumbled in the woods at night, but chose a passage right? Thus with a queasy stomach I observed the raising canes, the clinking animals, grunting smiths, and hoofs upon the floor, as bowed wardens slavers trapped, constricting them with reins, and spiny bridles, bladed bits the fiends could not ignore. Like boulders rolling down a hill, the clanking hammers boomed, producing branding irons from the furnace smelted ore. The tools without a fang of fire the sullied flesh consumed, the cauterizers made to fit the burns around the eyes, while pus and goo the boiling blood on blackened faces spumed. Upon my knees I saw the clay, yet heard in human cries, the smack and slurp of organs burst, which gurgled growing back, remorse and rage recurring where compassion should arise. A pile of bodies groaning close, the sinners in a stack, alive had been ungodly souls, who languished, I was told, because they're used to creatures free in tiny cages pack, with horses as resources sold, while mares malnourished fold, though deeper were the farmers who mistreated pigs for meat, immobile cattle kept in barns, by chains and bars controlled. If convicts are in jails observed, with shackles on their feet, have eager keepers justice served, restricting human rights? Or have the wardens too deserved detention more complete, for subjugating creatures whom a court of law indicts? If freedom is a value that we prize above the rest, then is duress by force of law a crime that us unites, or retribution legalized through cruelties confessed? We claim condign captivity by reason is divined, but seeing captors being held, my morals put to test. Deduction is to values and emotions always blind, and thereby cannot draw a line between a heinous case and critics who are sent to hell for having thoughts unkind. Thus absolute conviction is as empty as the space. Redemption based on ethics strict is guided by our fear, and laws depend on feelings for the meaning of disgrace. The bawling of the fallen boats I cannot stand to hear, the slavers crawling even with their legs together bound, escaping from the branders and the punishment severe. The frizzled flesh, the faces fried, obnoxious is the sound, with captors into captives turned. I start to wonder why the vets who cats hath euthanized, the ferals in a pound, must suffer like suppliers sleek who women used to buy, supporting bonded labor while the victims were disdained, abused by clients, beaten, raped, and bleeding left to die. Assaults are common, mercy scarce, the ground above is stained, the blood of vengeance flowing fast, we leave a court behind, and yet the trust of justice is conditioned and ingrained so deeply in our psyches that to horrors we are blind. Have fields not been maroon enough, recolored by our wars, without the hate we witness or the wrath we came to find? Am I delivered from this fate and saved despite my flaws, to struggle for 100 years and end up in the urn, to study scriptures which contain but contradicting laws, in hope that facing mysteries a secret we may learn? You show me order in ordeals, impartial yet unfair, but reason in the torment cold I hardly can discern. My master answered, bending down to stroke my tousled hair, no trial has occurred to fill the caverns of regret, where tongues, were they not torn apart, contrition might declare. The guilty thoughts which sharpened fangs to traders are a threat, because conflicting impulses their minds asunder rend. Enslaving creatures born to laugh, dependence they forget, denying how by empathy we loneliness transcend. Compassion killed, the coffers filled, they always feel forlorn, desirous of connectedness, distrustful of a friend. For setting prices they have learned, subjection follows scorn. The slavers with possessions are competing for respect, afraid that silence would reveal how lonely we are born, how needy courting freedoms are the fortunate elect. But having spent an eon here reflecting on their deeds, they understand discrepancies between the dire effect and fantasies of power when placated are the needs, suspicion as a demon whom the shippers must obey. For we are not by fates decreed to stay above the steeds, and humans do not suffer more than creatures eating hay. The conflagration of the shades, the congregation grim, made others work to pay a debt, but now the penance pay. I rose to see the crippled crowd, the embers glowing dim. Have demons or divinities decided on this pain? A lord who has a wrong avenged by chewing on a limb? What if there is no other way to happiness attain than learning grace and empathy when terrors make us ill, and hoping justice will prevail without the slavers slain? For if there is no loving God who enemies would kill, then who should be responsible for slaves outside the law, who have no voice, no choice to run, but wishes must fulfill? Should I remain aloof and calm, the prostitutes ignore, who live across the street and still their freedom try to earn? The sword was turning in my chest, the conscience with a claw. The brander in the hand was mine, and mine the face to burn.